Catalin is going to give the PC chairs report.
Hello, thanks for staying around, even if soon there'll be a happy hour happening. It's an hour, so you don't have to run yet. So yeah, I'm Catalin, and together with Jasmin, I was chairing the PC this year, and I wanted to give you some idea about what happened and how things work. So first, many good news in terms of participation. We're the biggest CPP in terms of the number of registrants. We have 133 registered participants as of 10 a.m. I'm not sure if this number changed since then. The other thing is we also set a record in terms of submissions. We had 72 submitted papers after one desk reject or something like this. There were 72 reviewed papers. And in the end, we accepted 27. And I'll return to it. It's a bit at the limit of what we can support in the current format. You saw some 10 minutes breaks around, so it's squeezing space quite a bit. But first, let me tell you a bit about the review process in numbers. So I already said that we had 72 submissions. We used the hot crap system and light double blind, which is also, I guess, a first for CPP. And many other SIG plan conferences use this to reduce bias. And I think it worked. Acceptance rate is 37.5%. Which is not a record, which not the lowest acceptance rate so far. I think in Paris in 2017 it was even lower. We had 37 days for reviewing and discussing after 5 days of bidding. So this is also a bit tight, and I'll return to this later. We had 26 PC members and 79 external reviewers who helped lighten the burden of all the submissions we received. And in the end, each paper received 3.26 reviews on average. So in total, we had 235 reviews, about 2/3 done by the PC members, and about 1/3 done by the external reviewers. So yeah, it was quite a lot of work. So I'd like to thank all the PC members for all this work. Maybe an applause to all the PC members. So yes, question or yes?
How do you have 79 external reviews, but 75% are from PC members?
65.
Is that all right?
Well, so more, okay, it's somewhere between 64 and 66, since there are 3 external reviewers who weren't really entered in the hot crap system. So depending on how you count, it's somewhere around there. But well, it gives you a rough idea about how many reviews were done by the PC and how many were outsourced. Since well, the large majority of the external reviews were tracked through hot crap, which is a great feature of hot crap. So here is all the external reviewers. I won't delve too much on this, but yes, it's a really large set of people, and I would like to thank all of them too. Then I would like to thank all the POPL organizers who really take care of most of the organization work related to CPP. Also, I would like to thank the CPP steering committee who helps give us documentation and advice on how to run the conference. And finally, I would like to thank our financial supporters or sponsors who donated to CPP. So it's 9 of them this year. There is Aarhus University, Cobra Consortium, there is CertiK, Google and Nomadic Labs as silver sponsors, and there's DeepSpec, Deon Digital, Zilika, Galois, and Runtime Verification as bronze sponsors, and I would like to thank them all. And I should also mention, I guess this is also a record in the number of sponsors we managed to convince. I think previous editions didn't manage to find many. We did. And what the sponsor allowed us to do first is to provide support for people who wanted to attend CPP but would have had troubles to attend otherwise. So we waived like 18 registrations for people who needed it. And then the other thing is at 7 today we're having the CPP conference dinner in a very nearby restaurant, just 3 minutes walk from here. So we are somewhere down there. If you exit towards Canal Street, walk for 1 block and then another half block, you should be there on Bourbon Street. So it's very near. Yeah, so this was, you had to sign up and pay a little sum, but the rest was all paid by the sponsor. And if you have a ticket that you don't plan to use, you can give it to someone who would like to come or leave it at the registration desk, and someone else can pick it up and come to dinner in 1 hour and 15 minutes after the happy hour is done. Okay. Other thing I would like to discuss is I mentioned that we are starting to reach the limit of how much we can accommodate with the current format. We accepted 27 papers, and that's pretty much as it goes. The acceptance rate is also seems considered low by most of our community. If you say compared to other conferences like ITP, which are in a similar space, this is lower than what ITP usually has. So I don't think we can lower that further. Also, the talk slots are pretty short. So 17 plus 5 is, again, at the limit of normal, lower limit. So in a way, the question now is, if we get more submissions next year, what should we do? Should we extend CPP to 3 days? This is possible. If you look at the program, there is already another conference that's co-located with POPL that's running for 3 days, so and it's called VMKI. So all we would need to do is to start on Monday instead of, to start on Sunday instead of on Monday. So I just wanted to get a feel. I mean, I guess this is going to be discussed in the steering committee and everywhere, but I wanted to get a feel of what do people think, like who would think it would be okay to extend CPP to 3 days if we get more submissions? Hands up. So who would think it would not be okay to extend CPP? Well, so it seems like pretty anonymous choice, yeah? I don't think there is any formal relation, well, as far as I know, but the two conferences are operating pretty much in the same space. ITP?
No, the dates are done.
Yeah, ITP is organized in a different way. I don't think I'm not understand what the proposal would be.
The schedule for CPP was purposely designed to be far enough away from ITP.
Yeah, so to provide a conference to the community that's in the other half of the year. And yeah, in a way, being 3 days, it's quite normal for a conference. I don't think it's there is anything too abnormal about it. I guess the only strain is that for people who are also attending POPL, the whole thing starts getting pretty long. But, well, I guess we'll have to cope with it. I guess the only other alternative I can see, other than, well, reducing acceptance rate or stock slots even more, would be to go dual track on CPP, which I don't know. People start nodding. So how many people would prefer to see 2 tracks at CPP? Yeah, so there is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, but I guess it's not as popular as extending to 3 days. 4.
The idea in the other direction, which is that having both CPP and ITP as separate conferences, both either of which is quite broken into the big leagues and being accepted as one of the most selective conferences, might be counterproductive, and it could be helpful to consolidate that into one.
Yeah. So the question is whether the question I can repeat. So the question is whether it would make sense to join ITP and CPP. I don't know, something to discuss at a different level than where I live. I'm quite happy to come to CPP, especially since it's together with POPL. No, if joining means not being with POPL, for me it would be quite hard. But I guess every person in this room would have a different answer. Anyway, I won't delve on this too much. I guess the takeaway is, yes, it's okay to move to 3 days if needed.
We have a comment.
Yeah.
So it's not yet on.
So this year, actually, ITP merged with each car, so it is applying this philosophy of, oh, let's try to be one big conference. It's just not merging with CPP. And indeed, they got 176 submissions, so it's quite, I mean, it's usually each car gets 100 and ITP 70, so really got the union. But yeah, I just wanted to point this out, that it is in some sense happening, but not every year. It's just something they're trying this year, and maybe they'll do again in 2 or 4 years.
It's also that our community is pretty broad, and indeed, like, CPP is trying to draw more on the PL side of the community, while ITP with each car is trying to draw more in the automated reasoning kind of direction. So in a way, maybe it makes sense to collocate with other things, but not necessarily with each other. I guess that might be one point. Anyway, discussion point 2, the whole schedule behind, say, the way the review and proceeding and organization of CPP is very tight. First, POPL notification was very late this year, probably also because POPL was very late this year. It's usually a bit earlier during the year, but this is not a big deal, but for us it affected us quite a bit, since our abstract submission deadline is generally 1 week later. Which gave us really just this 37 days for reviewing and discussing, which was okay as long as we kept a lot of pressure on the PC, and so that I mean, really, someone not submitting his reviews in time by 2 days, it was already a disaster, as he would get 3 emails from us in those 2 days. So it works with pressure, with enough pressure, but I mean, it's tight. And then what we decided, and this, yeah, a few things. First, we decided to have a longer period of time than in previous years for the camera-ready deadline. So to actually give people some chance to react on the feedback of the PC, which I think is necessary. Otherwise, why are we spending all this time to write careful reviews where it's just a yes/no answer? So I think this was a good idea to give people time to improve their paper. So in this case, it was a bit more than 3 weeks. But this really meant that the processing of the final papers could pretty much start after the holidays, because that's like 1 day or a few days before Christmas, right? So The proceedings were technically done a few days back, 2 days back, and you got a private link to them. In the meanwhile, also we asked all the authors to make their papers available as preprints, which ACM allows if you selected the right option when you in the form. If you didn't select to give ACM the copyright, which anyway you shouldn't do. Which means that no matter what's happening with the official proceedings, we can you can go and look at all the papers because yes, the conference started 54 days after notification, and I should mention something else is this is pretty much required for some people to get visas and stuff. So it's not like we can move notification much later and all people still be able to make it here. So in a way, can't move this much later. The proceedings should be available in the best case on the ACM digital library tomorrow. In the best case, we'll see whether it gets postponed further. And in fact, what matters maybe even more is when will they make it to the SIGPlan Open Talk, which is the paywall-less version of the proceedings that pretty much everyone who knows about SIGPlan Open Talk can access. So in a way, it was good to have this temporary or whatever do-it-yourself solution with the preprints because that might take a bit longer for the whole thing to be fully available to everyone, not just behind the paywall, which might happen tomorrow.
I don't know whether Robert is here, but he's been campaigning, and Robert Brand was part of this community. He's been campaigning about this ACM copyright letter and has been quite successful, I think.
Copyright what?
There's been this copyright scandal on ACM, which I think people have been quite vocal about. And there's been a pushback from people from our community also discussed on the title list. So there's quite a bit of pushback, and the ACM has apologized for the letter. So I think that there's a push to more open access, and I think we could help that a bit.
Yeah, so what we did this year in this respect was to explain to people, even in the call for papers, what the different copyright options are for papers. The fact that if you pay, you can get open access, like this gold open access, that if you don't want to pay, you should go with this, how is it called, license, whatever, non-exclusive, or actually an exclusive license to the ACM, which allows you to put preprints online and pretty much get de facto open access.
So for most European funders, it's required to use open access.
Yeah, and that's enough. If you have a preprint that's permanently archived, and if you chose this exclusive license, that's good enough for now in most places, and it's free. So in a way, I think what we've done this year is we didn't get any big compromise or any big breakthrough in this respect, but at least we've informed everyone what would be good to choose, and we have all the preprints from the program. So in a way, it's quite good, I would say. Now, last point, there's 2 proposals being discussed at the steering committee, which are more about the internal organization of CPP. One is about adopting a junior chair, senior chair model, in which each program chair serves for 2 years. Since, now that I've organized it now I pretty much know how it works, so I could do it again. But the first time is always the hardest, and then everyone just does it once and goes away, and this knowledge that everyone accumulates in his head is not really transferred to the next people who start not from scratch. There is a bit of documentation, but if you look at how much you need to know, I think it's still a small amount. So this junior chair, senior chair model allows to transfer knowledge more easily from one edition to the other. Um, and also, yeah, also to do improvements, right? After you've seen it how it's done first, you learn something, and if you're there next year, you can actually change things. While if it's someone else there next year, sure, you can tell them that was a problem. Maybe you could change things, but you don't even know how it works, so it's much harder. The other thing is, because we're having now significant industry traction and sponsor money, that sponsor money has to actually be used, for instance, to provide financial support or to organize a dinner or to record talks. Or we have tons of ideas about what we could use with this money, but this means extra organization work on top of what POPL does for us, right? So the next proposal is to have some conference chairs that work on similar junior chair, senior chair model that takes care of this extra organization work that comes from having money and also from getting that money, right? They would be the ones who would go to the companies. It's not exactly a PC chair kind of job to go to companies and ask them for money, especially since afterwards you have to explain to them, your papers won't get automatically accepted at the conference, even if I'm also the one running the PC. So it's good to keep this organization and scientific part of the conference separate, and having separate people would help too. So these are two proposals that we're discussing in the steering committee. So I hope they will be accepted and they will happen at the next edition. Okay, so if there's no further urgent things to discuss, we can have, okay, there's some.
It's probably a lot of work, but is there any interest in evaluating artifacts the same way Purple does?
Well, this does come up. First, there was a big disagreement between me and Jasma, but it didn't even get to us discussing because we really didn't have the time to do it, and we don't have the time with the current timeline. The way artifact evaluation is usually done is after the papers have been accepted, which, it's very little time. It includes the Christmas period. So if someone wants to sign, or a large number of people want to sign up to evaluate artifacts for Christmas, we can discuss. But I guess with no change there, it's pretty much dead in the water. Yeah, it doesn't.
I think there is a flaw in the whole business about time, which is why do we have to consider that the deadline, the submission submission date has to be behind the POPL deadline. Why does CPP have to be subordinate to POPL? This is a strange idea. It's like we decide that we are going to take the second rank papers from POPL. If we do that, of course, then we have all kinds of problems because we don't have time to referee, we don't have time to do more referee of artifacts if we want. So, I understand if we consider that CPP is a fledgling conference, then maybe we need to have this attraction feature, but do we have to be attached to this forever? I'm not completely sure. And if we start forgetting about this deadline, this POPL deadline, they do what they want, we do what we want, maybe we will have less submissions, but maybe the topic of the conference is study enough that you don't need to be subordinate. So
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
The way I speak would mean that I have a very strong opinion about it, but I think this should be discussed.
Yeah, I agree. It should be discussed, and it could allow us to move, not like 2 months earlier or something to have like the. So what's this? Okay, maybe not 2 months. Maybe 1 month and a half earlier. So somewhere early September could. So
How many papers did we get that were first rejected
Yeah, I think this is the problem. When this was discussed, and we discussed this because we knew that this is going to be very tight, and the solution we came is to pretty much say, okay, the proceedings will be done afterwards. But we definitely discussed about, hey, do we really need to be after POPL? And we discussed with Brigitte and some of the people in that discussion, I guess Zong was also there, seem to imply that there is a significant number of papers that of submission to CPP that come from POPL, but I don't think anyone really has numbers. So in a way, I guess one good thing could be to do a private set intersection or something to count the number of papers that are resubmissions and to have some actual data to base our decision on. Because otherwise, yes, sure, it seems that we're getting submissions, but it's not even clear. I think with Flores.
Yeah,
You can come next to me otherwise.
So CPP has been sponsored by SIGPlan, I think on like a year-by-year basis for many years, but doesn't have permanent sponsorship. Do you know if is there any plan to try to get permanent SIGPlan sponsorship?
Not as far as I know, and it's definitely something we can discuss. I guess it's, how should I say? I don't have the feeling. I mean, Zong should definitely comment on this, but I personally didn't have the feeling that that things went so well every year, and that CPP is really committed to being always collocated with POPL. At least that was my feeling. I'm definitely a supporter of being always collocated with POPL, but I'm very biased. I'm from the POPL community, so for me it's simple. But generally, my feeling was that often CPP felt like being treated like a workshop and not being helped enough to achieve its potential, its full potential. And so in a way, I think this is definitely that something should be discussed. I'm on the first camp. I do support being with POPL, and if we commit to be long term with POPL, we can go for the other model in which we don't have to reapply every year to be a SIGPlan conference. But I think Zong and others have more things to say.
It's past 6, so should we stop?
Yeah, but maybe Zong.
Yeah, so initially we were wondering whether we should get a permanent sponsorship. But I think during the last few years, we found this 1 year sponsorship is fairly easy to get. You just reprint out like a lawyer, you just reprint out the template, apply. It's automatically approved, and you still have the flexibility for doing something different. If, as we evolve the conference, we identify some other potential. For example, if we go for 3-day conference, there might be cause other issues. So, so far we haven't seen any pressure for being a permanent one, because it seems like if we want to be permanent, we could get it, right?
I think also Jasma wanted to add something. I'm not sure whether it's probably to an earlier point.
Oh, I wanted to go back to Yves. I'm actually siding with your comments. I also think we don't need to be after POPL. I think it's causing more trouble than it's helping us. And I have some anecdotal evidence, no hard numbers, but I mean, 1 year I actually had a paper rejected at POPL and then accepted at CPP. But we submitted it at POPL knowing it would get rejected. We just thought, let's give it a shot, right? We thought of it as a CPP paper and then got accepted. So we have done our strategy differently and, probably not submitted at POPL in the first place. The other case I remember was a paper that I saw that was a POPL reject and showed up at CPP, and it was rejected at CPP as well, because the paper was putting too much emphasis on, you know, the new meta theory and not enough on the formalization, right? A POPL paper is not a CPP paper. You have to rewrite it in some sense, and just resubmitting it like you would do with this kind of deadlines, that doesn't make a good CPP paper. So I think the conferences are different enough that we don't or shouldn't necessarily be right after.
Well, I mean, it's definitely something we are going to discuss, and your input is very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, and happy hour.